That's great. Oh, good. He's got it. Thank you very much. Welcome to an original Works for Horn recital. My name is Benjamin Garrett, and everything you will hear on this recital is something I either composed or arranged. I'm going to start with a piece entitled Waltzes for Horn and Piano. Speak quickly and concisely. The second piece I will perform is a piece entitled Enough. You might wonder, what the heck does that mean? I have a habit I've developed when it comes to people that are meaningful to me, whether it's family or friends, and I like to ask people what word describes them, or what word would they like to describe them. And many years ago, I met a woman who I asked this question to her, and her word was she wanted to be enough. She had chips on her shoulders, she had a lot to prove to the world, and so that was her word. And so I tried to embody that in a piece of music. So this is a kind of a lyrical piece entitled Enough. next three selections are part of what I might call my academic compositions, which means trying to compose things that are specifically designed to help students educationally and developmentally. From my experience, there's not a lot of quality kind of beginner level solos. And so I don't know how many years ago, this is probably around 2016, somewhere in there, you could call that my first phase of compositional exploration. But I tried to write three kind of beginner level solos, hopefully of quality, of course. And so the next three selections are going to be those. This first one is entitled Walking Tune. So hopefully you can kind of picture going on a walk is the whole kind of premise of it. Waltz. You'll notice that I do like waltzes mainly because I like to enjoy dancing and I feel like musical form waltzes make a lot of sense. But yes, this is again designed to be kind of a beginner level solo to help students develop from an early age correctly. So again, this is just called Simple Waltz. selection that kind of falls under that beginner level category is a piece entitled Theme and Variation. Theme and variation is just what it sounds. You have a theme that is presented, and then subsequently you have some sort of small changes in that theme to create variation. So hopefully you'll hear that throughout this. Basically, there's a theme followed by 3 variations. Something that I challenged myself when I basically was able to figure out how to make the horn work easier. So I challenged myself to kind of write some pretty competent sounding or difficult sounding pieces. This piece right here is entitled Nocturne for horn and piano. I should also say that all the music on the first half basically comes from my early period of composition, or you could even say pre-COVID term, or yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word, pre-COVID, not term, but period. That's what I was looking for. And basically, the reason I'm sharing all this is, initially, a lot of my inspiration was to try to come up with things to fill gaps in the horn world, or try to emulate other pieces that I'm a fan of. So the reason I bring this up is there's a very famous piece by Franz Strauss entitled Nocturne for horn and piano. It's very famous. It's one of the standard repertoire pieces in the horn world. And so I just, from the beginning, this is inspired by that. However, this is much higher in range. But anyway, I hope if you know the piece, you'll probably hear its influence. So this is, again, Nocturne for horn and piano. my earlier period of composition. Probably my, again, arguably one of my most unique compositions. This is, again, I would really say a real original. And again, one of the earliest pieces I wrote, and it's entitled Scherzo for Horn and Piano. And again, this will conclude the first half, and we'll take about a 10-minute intermission. That way I can get you to the Super Bowl if you want to watch it ASAP. So Scherzo for Horn and Piano. Style. In the horn world, some of the most famous pieces were written by Mozart and Beethoven, and I tried to embody that as best I could and create a piece that kind of fits that style, especially just to have something I could teach with or just perform like this. And I think this actually was probably the last piece I wrote in what we will call my pre-COVID period. Everything after this will have been composed during or after COVID. So consider this kind of the last of my early period, if you will. This is movement in a classical style. or post-COVID or COVID era. And so during COVID, guess what? We had a lot of time on our hands. And so I really delved into the concept of composition a lot and started to just explore, experiment. So this next piece is very interesting. In the world of jazz, there's a lot of progressions. And one of the more famous one is the idea of a progression, which means, progression basically means using certain chords within the harmonic structure and pairing them together and making different combinations of them. And one of the more famous one in jazz is 2-5-1. And so I explored that chord progression a little bit and came up with this piece that it's called Toofivon, or however you want to pronounce it, but it basically just means 2-5-1. And so this is my exploration of that chord progression. Again, during COVID, having all that time, I tried to find ways that I could come up with opportunities to propose many new things. So one of those instances was for Mother's Day. And so I wrote a piece for my mom, who was a pianist, and for Mother's Day of 2020. And it is entitled Reminisce, and you'll kind of hopefully see that I tried to make the piano part more intricate, which should be the star of the show, although the horn obviously plays a prominent role. So this is Reminisce for horn and piano. The next set of 3 selections are arrangements of sacred hymns, and which is something I've done. At the current moment, I have about 14 or 15 hymn arrangements. But these 3 specifically represent kind of a combination of a few ideas. Obviously, just having arrangements for hymns for the horn, whether that's for preludes or whatnot. Back in my college days, maybe it was even before that, there was a famous piece called 3 Hymn Tune Settings by a man named Paul Bassler, I believe. I might be mispronouncing that. And they represented actually at the time a kind of good festival and recital piece that featured really cool arrangements of 3 hymns. And so 2 of the hymns that were on that I've also arranged. And then 1 is, not on that. But I kind of picked these 3 as kind of the ability to pair the 3 of these to actually create kind of a recital set, if you will, of kind of sacred arrangements. So the first, I'll go ahead and just tell you all 3 and kind of treat them as a set. The first one will be my arrangement of Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Then I will do Abide With Me, and I will conclude with an arrangement of Amazing Grace. So this kind of, again, will be a set of 3 hymn tunes. It's like my own hymn tune settings, if you will. And hopefully these 3 will pair very nicely as kind of a little recital. So here it is. Come Thou Fount, Abide With Me, and Amazing Grace. You can clap in between, of course, but I won't stand in between them. call a professional horn repertoire. There's a handful of pieces, probably like 3 to 4 that are really appropriate for like a young progressing student somewhere in like 9th grade, if you will. But I've also noticed that then at a certain point, because they're professional pieces, there's this giant leap between where like this one piece would and then the next kind of level up. And so this was an actual attempt, and again, it was during COVID, to try to create what we call a festival type piece that kind of bridges the gap between kind of those professional pieces that are pretty accessible for most students and then that leap to the next level. The other reason it's called a Petite Sonata is it's 3 movements. It is 3 movements. Each movement, I try to represent a standard form. The first movement is just a sonata allegro form. For music people, they know what that is. I'm not going to go into depth on that because we got to get to the Super Bowl. But that's the first movement, and it follows a specific form. Then normally in a sonata type piece, the second movement is a slow lyrical, which is what I did, and I follow just a simple what's called an ABA form. And then the final piece is again another upbeat, and it is in what's called a rondo form, which is again another standard musical form that's used in a lot of compositions. And so my goal was to create a piece that was under 10 minutes in length, that could be used in festivals for a student that might not be ready for those top tier kind of professional pieces that are out there, but would be bored with some of this other stuff. And so this is, again, my contribution to the horn repertoire, if you will, Petite Sonata by Benjamin Barrett. And again, it is a 3-movement work, so there'll be little pauses in between. want. If not, go enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Thank you kindly.